Hello everyone and welcome to another Guild Wars 2 video. Today we're going to be looking at the Living World update of Tangled Paths. So as usual, I'll do a really quick summary of what happened this patch, and then talk about some theories going forward, and then my feelings on this patch as a whole. This patch begins with a letter from Logan Thacker who tells you that all of Destiny's Edge minus Ritlock are sitting at Camp Resolve in the Silver Wastes, and he asks you to come and go with them because it's been too long since you've gone and killed an Elder Dragon together, and that all the troops are getting ready for the assault and looking forward to seeing you, blah blah blah. So off you go to the Silver Wastes to meet with the rest of Destiny's Edge and Camp Resolve. Once you get there, you break the news to all of them that you may not be able to be there with them when they go to fight Mordremoth. They of course question you on what would be so important that you couldn't be there to kill one of the Elder Dragons, and you basically swear them to silence and tell them that you need to go find the Masterpiece and find Glint's egg and make sure he gets it to wherever it's going and that Glint's egg is safe. They all basically agree with you on how important this task is, especially Kaith, and wish you good luck and wish that you can hopefully be back for the final battle against Mordremoth and be there when, of course, the dragon is taken down. You then go on the other side of Camp Resolve and talk with Casimir, Marjorie, Bram, and Rox, where Marjorie and Casimir basically break the vision down for Rox and Bram and tell them how important it is and what they need to be focusing on. One thing to note at this point is Kaith is now following you, and whenever you try to talk to her, she just says, "Don't mind me," or something to that effect. Your group splits up where Marjorie and Casimir go to talk to Traherne and make sure that he knows everything from the vision and everything about the dragon egg and make sure the information doesn't get out. Bram's going to stay in the base camp there in case the Masterpiece comes back, and Rox will go with you to find the Masterpiece. You check in with Taimi really quickly before you go, and she tells you that she saw the Masters go to the southwest to try and find the Masterpiece, so that would probably be a good place to start off. One final thing before you leave the camp is you confront Kaith on the fact that she's been following you around, and she says, "No, I'm not following you, I'm accompanying you. I'm going with you to find the Masterpiece and find the dragon egg." She goes on to say that even if the packed airships leave to go fight Mordremoth before you're able to come back, that she thinks that her presence with you is going to be much more helpful than her presence fighting Mordremoth. And with that, you leave Camp Resolve going southwest, trying to find any items along the way that would show you the trail that the Masters have taken, which of course you find multiple pieces of clothing and just tracks and whatnot. The trail eventually leads you to a weird symbol next to a cavern, and you go in with Rox and Kaith to investigate. You're attacked very quickly in here by Mordremoth, who seem to be focusing more on delaying you than actually trying to kill you. It's a bunch of jungle tendrils and just a couple terragriffs, so a bunch of roots and cripples going around, and of course the path forward is blocked by vines. Once you get past the vines, you find the Masters of Wind, Lightning, and Sun, and a Mordrem terragriff. The Mordrem terragriff surprise attacks the Masters and impales the Master of Sun through the chest and throws her across the cavern. After that, the other Masters go in to fight with the terragriff, and you come in and engage the terragriff as well. What follows is a kind of interesting boss fight with the Mordrem terragriff going in between multiple different phases, and you just having to slowly whittle down its health through each phase. During the course of the fight, the Master of Wind is also severely injured, and it's just you and the Master of Lightning that end up finishing off the Mordrem terragriff. After the fight, it's confirmed that the Master of Sun is dead, and the Master of Lightning says that they are not going to push any further on. They have taken too many losses, and she's going to take the Master of Wind back to the camp. They trust you to go and find the Master of Peace and ensure his and the egg's safety. They tell you to follow the mark, which you found outside of the cave. Follow those marks around, and you will end up finding the Master of Peace. So on you go back into the Silver Wastes to find these marks, and you follow them down southwest to a Skrit tunnel that you're able to go through and go up into a small new area that wasn't here in the last patch. Well, it wasn't accessible at least. This area has a portion of it which is underground, which is being termed the Labyrinth, and which is where the next part of the Living Story instances take place. Upon entering the Labyrinth, you find Kaith, who tells you that she and your friends were able to track the Master of Peace in there, but a bunch of vines sprung up around them and separated them out. You then must go through the Labyrinth and find Rox, Bram, Casimir, and Marjorie. They are each in different parts of the labyrinth, and really this part of it sort of feels like busy work of just having to run around a lot to find them. But anyways, upon rescuing all four of them, you go into the center of the labyrinth where you find a Mordrem Predator, which is a Mordrem corrupted troll. You then find another little boss battle against him, which this one is honestly remarkably easier than the last one because you just hit on him a bunch and pull bees onto him whenever the bees have spawned. After the long grind of killing this troll, you go to talk to the Master of Peace, who is laying injured on the ground here in the middle of the maze. He tells you quickly come to him, he's dying, and that you're the only hope now. You have to protect the egg, and that you must understand the importance of it to Tyrion's future. Kaith yells out, "No time to explain," jumps in, grabs the egg, and shadow steps away. Shortly thereafter, the Master of Peace also dies. Bram and Casimir are going to stay there to make sure the Master of Peace has a proper send-off, while you, Rox, and Marjorie go to the Pale Tree to try and talk to her whenever she's conscious about all of this, because she's the one who would actually know what's going on. And with that, the Tangled Pass episode of The Living World is complete. So now on to going over theories that came up with this patch. There's only really one major thing to talk about here, which is why Kaith did what she did, but there's one little pit stop I'll make before that and talk about the Mordremoth Terragriff you fight in the middle of the instance where you're rescuing the Masters of Sun, Wind, and Lightning. So if you remember in the last video, I talked about how Mordremoth seem to start out as like corrupted animals, and then they turn into more plant-based variants of them. If you look at the Terragriff in this instance, and you compare him to the other Terragriffs you see out in the Silver Wastes, this Terragriff is much more plant-based. It's got bioluminescence on it, and the skin just looks greener. I don't know if the greener affects because you're in the cave and it's just darker, but it appears to me like I was saying with all the other minions, that the Terragriffs are also becoming more plant-based, which is just it's a nice thing to note here, and it supports what I said before. So now on to the big and really the only real thing that happened this patch. Why did Kaith take the egg? So there's two basic ways of looking at what she did, which is basically saying that she's doing it to help you or she's doing it to help Mordremoth. That's the two basic ways to look at it. Now let's assume that she was trying to do it to help you. Why wouldn't she say anything, and why wouldn't she have said anything before this? She yells out that there's no time to explain, but what about all of the time she was running around with you, not saying anything? Why didn't she just try to explain it then? So that leads me to conclude that she is actually doing this against us, that she's got some hidden agenda with the egg, either for Mordremoth or for something else. Now a big question with this is, why would she do this? I mean, she's been a stalwart champion. She's fought all of the Elder Dragon's minions except for Mordremoth before this. She's killed champions from every single one of them. And she was part of killing Zaitan and part of almost killing Krakatoric. So what changed with her? I have a fun theory about this, and it's sort of supported by what's happening in the trailer for the next patch, and that is that she is doing it for the Nightmare Court. Now, the first item that really made me think about this is Case Blossom, which you can get in the Silver Wastes, which basically says something along the lines of, I'm not your darling anymore. In fact, I just looked it up. It says, I'm done with your games and I'm finished with you. I am not your dear heart. Now, the only person that this could really be directed at, because she's only had one real love interest, was Fowlin. Fowlin is the leader of the Nightmare Court. Now, we the players have actually encountered Fowlin once in-game before at the very end of Twilight Arbor story mode, where you end up fighting her and defeating her and she teleports away. She hasn't seen again since then. Now, this is something that's really interesting. I just looked this up because I was trying to make sure that if she said anything interesting before she teleports away. So the last dialogues before she leaves is from Kaith. In this charade now, Fowlin. Fowlin, but dear heart, you used to enjoy our little games of make-believe. And then, catch this, Kaith, I'm done with your games and I'm finished with you. I am not your dear heart. Fowlin, we shall see, dear heart, we shall see. And she laughs and then disappears. I didn't catch this before, but that quote is the quote that's on Case Blossom, so they're trying to bring up memories with Case Blossom of the Twilight Arbor story mode and the fact that Kaith and Fowlin interacted there. So there's a little bit more thing. That is directly talking to Fowlin. It was even a quote from Kaith talking to Fowlin. One thing also to remember is that Kaith has a secret that Scarlet knew that we apparently did not know as the players, and that she would tell us at some point. We would be the first to know, is the words she used, actually. Be one of the first to know. What if this secret is something that we learned during the Edge of Destiny book, which is that Kaith had actually been poisoned by Fowlin. Fowlin used blood magic to poison Kaith with the Nightmare. Towards the end of the book, Kaith begged Fowlin to take the poison from her so she could fight the Elder Dragon, which was Krakatoric, and Fowlin said yes, she would do it, took it into her hand and rotted her hand. However, Fowlin is not exactly the most truthful person we've ever encountered on Tyria, so it's possible that she still has this poison in her, and because of this poison, she's now either being sort of controlled by Fowlin, or she's been corrupted somewhat by Fowlin. Another possibility from this is that the poison was actually taken from her, but it still did its damage and that it's left her vulnerable. Now with the Pale Tree unconscious, her protection is diminished, I'm sure, and that means that Kaith, who was already vulnerable, might have had an opening for Mordremoth to get in. If this is true, then the Nightmare Court is tied in with Mordremoth, which actually has not been confirmed yet, because really you don't see Nightmare Court swarming out trying to help support the Mordremoth take everything, do you? Either way, this is going to be the big thing next patch, and we're going to find out what Kaith's secret is, if it's not already this. Beyond that, that's really all the theory I had to go over with this patch. There really wasn't that much to look at for this. And so we'll move on to my feelings on this patch. I think this patch is the worst patch so far in the Season 2 of the Living World. It's very short. It only has 3 instances, one of which is a dialogue instance with Destiny's Edge and the Scooby Gang, and the other 2 are very short. Even one of them has an achievement to do it within 12 minutes, which was not hard to do. Even when me and my friend that we were in there, we got lost repeatedly trying to get to the members of the group that was trapped. All in all, it probably took us about 30 minutes, 35 minutes at most, to do all of the stuff in this patch, and that was with listening to all the dialogue and trying to look around in the instances and find some cool things a little bit towards while we're going. The story we were given was not very substantial. Most of the instances was taken up by combat, which that's fine, but there was really, the story we got was Destiny's Edge is grouping up against Mordremoth. You're going out to try and find Glint's egg. You find the Masters. Half of the Masters die, including the Master of Peace. And Glint's egg is stolen by Kaith, which we have no idea where she's going or no real motive behind her besides the theories we can come up with. That really, I could have said that in the first part of the video, and that summarizes it up. I would say that if you're watching this video and you're trying to figure out should I spend the 200 gems to unlock this chapter of the Living World, I would say no. No, you should not. Watch this kind of video, figure out what went on, and move on past this one. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the gems. It's not worth any type of investment to get in this. Now, don't get me wrong. The implications from this patch are really big, and the fact that Kaith took the egg and went against us is pretty huge, actually. It's just the way it was done and where it was cut off. It doesn't give you anything to go on. It just going, oh, well, Kaith said, no time to explain, took the egg and disappeared. Woohoo. This feels like another one of those build-up patches, and it means that the next one might be really, really good because of it, but this one suffers. This episode really suffers because of it. I might be a little more forgiving if this patch actually gave us, a little bit more to do in the world, so there'd be something to do to carry you over to the next one. Like, for instance, the last one, you had the whole Silver Waste was new, so you could spend a ton of time there defending and doing events there, and that was all brand new stuff, and it kept you interested. It kept you looking forward to the next patch, and it didn't get you bored. This patch has 30 minutes of story instance, and the Labyrinth. The Labyrinth is a new thing. The Labyrinth opens up at the end of a breach, and that means that when the Silver Waste map finishes its usual rotation, you have 16 minutes to go down in the Labyrinth and collect loot down there and avoid these things that one-shot you. That means that the total thing of this patch, so it's about 45 minutes, being generous, an hour of content. If you only went through the Labyrinth once, which you only need to go through it once for the achievement if you're just there for that. So is 200 gems worth an hour of content? I don't think so, and I don't like this patch. I think I've made that very abundantly clear. I am looking forward to the future. I want to know what's going on with Kaith, because Kaith is my favorite member of Destiny's Edge. She was even before I made a Sylvari. But just the suspense of trying to figure out what's happening with Kaith does not do it. It's not enough for me on this patch. And that's really all I have to say on it. I'm probably going to start harping, if I haven't already, on how the stuff that I don't like about this patch if I keep going. So thank you all for watching. If you have any questions or comments or talk about theories and stuff that I missed, make sure you post them in the comments below. I really enjoy talking with all of you there. If you missed any past Living Story episodes, or one of the future ones even, I'll have a video up on my channel, so make sure you go and check that out and get caught up and know what's going on. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.